Marry me or your mother dies. She pepper-sprayed a Mafia boss in his own office. He blackmailed her into marriage, but the scar on Naledi's arm holds a secret that changes everything. She's the woman who saved Sa-Young-ho's life 2 years ago. He spent years searching for her. Now that he's found her, he'll never let go. Not until she breaks him first. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome to our channel. Quick note. If you think forced marriage is romantic in real life, don't subscribe. But if you understand the difference between dark fiction and reality, and you love morally grey characters finding redemption, you're my people. Hit subscribe and let's dive into this chaotic love story. Naledi's blazer felt too tight as the elevator climbed to the 15th floor. Her resume carried more than qualifications, rent payments, her mother's medication, her brother's school fees. This had to work. 3 stone-faced interviewers sat behind an imposing desk. She listed 5 years of experience, 3 languages, proficiency in every software they named. Their expressions never changed. You're overqualified, the woman said flatly. We'll be in touch. Dismissed. Naledi walked out with her head high, but the moment the elevator doors closed, she sagged against the wall. Her phone buzzed, her brother asking if she got the job. She couldn't answer. The elevator lurched, stopped at the wrong floor. Doors opened to a dark corridor, black marble, recessed lighting, a single door marked with Korean characters. No one around. Naledi stepped out, looking for another way down. The door at the end was ajar, revealing floor-to-ceiling windows and leather furniture. Empty. She could sit, collect herself, figure out how to tell her family she'd failed again. She slipped inside and collapsed on the couch. Her portfolio spilled across the coffee table. Just for a moment she'd close her eyes. Exhaustion pulled her under. A door closing jolted her awake. The room had dimmed, city lights glittering beyond windows. A man stood 3 feet away, bare chest still damp, dark hair wet, eyes locked on her with terrifying intensity. She scrambled up. I'm sorry. He moved like a predator. Suddenly his hand was on her throat, grip iron. Who sent you? How did you get past security? No one. I got lost. His bare skin was too close, his grip too strong. Her hand found the pepper spray in her bag. His grip tightened. She sprayed directly into his face. He released her with a violent Korean curse, stumbling back. She ran, leaving everything behind, heels skidding on marble, found the elevator, threw herself inside. The doors closed on his furious cursing. 30 floors up, Sa-Young-ho rinsed his burning eyes for the 3rd time, rage crystallizing into something colder. He'd survived ambushes, poison, bullets. But pepper sprayed in his own office? Unacceptable. He examined the documents she'd left. Naledi Kumalo, 26, South African. Address in the Cheap District. Jinwoo burst in with armed guards. They froze at their boss's expression. How? Sa-Young-ho's voice was soft, the dangerous kind. How did she reach my floor and leave alive? Find her, he said, dropping papers on Jinwoo's chest. Every detail. I want her history back to birth. 1 hour. Security team? Fire them. All 3 floors. He buttoned his shirt with controlled precision. Then find who's compromising my building. And the woman? Sa-Young-ho smiled without warmth. Bring her to me. I have questions about her bravery. 53 minutes later, Jinwoo returned with his report. Naledi Kumalo, interviewed for secretary this morning. Your company rejected her. She took the wrong elevator during security shift change. He showed images. Mother's terminal without treatment. Brother in university. 3 jobs to stay afloat. Clean record. Perfect prey. Sa-Young-ho studied her photo. Desperate women did anything for family. Reverse the rejection. She starts tomorrow. Bring her directly to me. You want her working here? She attacked me and ran. No one does that and walks free. His smile sharpened. Besides, she's interesting. I don't get interested often. That night, Naledi's phone rang. Unknown number. Miss Kumalo, Jinwoo Park from Cheonsa Corporation. We're offering you the position. Tomorrow 8 a.m. Salary is double with full benefits. The world tilted. What? They said, there was reconsideration. Can we expect you? Every instinct screamed trap. But her mother needed medication, her brother's tuition was due, and she was so tired of choosing which crisis to ignore. Yes, I'll be there. The next morning, reception directed her to the 30th floor. Her stomach dropped. His floor. Jinwoo waited at the elevator, sharp and threatening. He led her down the black marble corridor to where Sa-Young-ho sat, backlit by windows, tracking her like prey. Sit. She obeyed, spine straight despite her fear. You're brave, or stupid. I haven't decided which. I needed a job, not whatever this is. This is me deciding whether you leave employed or in pieces. He smiled coldly. I don't appreciate being attacked. I don't appreciate strange men grabbing me. The temperature dropped. Jinwoo's hand moved toward his jacket. Sa-Young-ho raised one finger and Jinwoo froze. You have fire. Most people grovel. He circled closer. You work for me now. As my personal assistant, you go where I go, do exactly what I say. And if I refuse? He leaned down, caging her in. One call and your mother loses her transplant spot. Your brother's scholarship disappears. Your landlord finds lease violations. Her blood froze. You can't. I can do anything. The question is whether you're smart enough to accept reality. She thought of her mother's laboured breathing, her brother's excited texts. She'd already lost. When do I start? Now. As she stood to leave, he spoke again, curious. That's an interesting scar on your arm. She froze, hand going to her covered forearm. How did you get it? Accident. 2 years ago, broken glass. He stared, then nodded slowly. How unfortunate. Welcome to Cheonsa Corporation, Miss Kumalo. The first week, Sa-Young-ho watched her constantly. At meetings with blood-stained men, in cars to warehouses reeking of fear, he asked careful questions. Where were you 2 years ago? That scar, what were you doing when it happened? Each question felt like a trap. By the second week, she'd learned the truth. Cheonsa Corporation was a kingdom, and Sa-Young-ho was its brutal king. She watched him break fingers for embezzlement, order executions like he was ordering coffee, and always, he watched her. The third week, he forced her to stay late. The building emptied until only his office remained lit. Jinwoo left at Sa-Young-ho's command. The door locked with finality. He circled her slowly. You're not afraid enough. I'm terrified. I've just learned not to show it. You don't grovel. You meet my eyes when other men won't. Why? Because you want me afraid. I won't give you the satisfaction. He stepped close, backing her against the window. What do you want from me? Everything. The word hung like a threat. Come to my penthouse tomorrow night, 8 p.m. And if I refuse, you won't. The penthouse was beautiful and sterile, marble, glass, violence barely contained. Sa-Young-ho gestured to a folder on the table. Read. Inside, her mother's medical records showing 4 months to live, her brother's precarious scholarship, her own pathetic savings. I own people everywhere, he said. I'm offering you a solution. Nothing you offer comes without a price. The price is you. Marry me. She laughed hysterically. You're insane. I'm realistic. Your mother needs treatment. Your brother needs security. Marry me. and they get everything. And if I refuse? His eyes went arctic. One call and your mother loses every transplant list. Your brother's scholarship evaporates. Your family gets evicted. He tilted his head. Or say yes and they never worry again. All I ask is that you belong to me. You can't force someone to marry you. I can do anything. 24 hours? Choose wisely. She ran. At home. She packed and booked a flight to Johannesburg, the airport at 2 a.m., just a few more hours until boarding. Going somewhere. Sa Yong-ho stood 3 feet away with Jin-woo and guards. He looked calm. Worse than anger. You can't do this. Did you really think I'd let you go? I've been hunting you for 2 years. Her blood froze. What? 2 years ago. An alley. 4 men with weapons. His eyes locked on hers. And a woman who helped a dying stranger. The scar on your arm. You got it pulling me out, didn't you? If she admitted it, he'd never let go. No. Broken glass. I was nowhere near. I've been searching 2 years. I know it was you. Then you're wrong. I never saw you before 3 weeks ago. Something cracked in his certainty. Then his jaw tightened. Maybe. But it doesn't matter. You're still mine. Take her home. Airport security backed away when Jin-woo flashed something. No one was coming to save her. 3 days later, a civil ceremony. No guests. A judge who took money and asked no questions. When asked if she took him, Naledi opened her mouth. Your mother's surgery is next week, Sa Yong-ho murmured. Say no, and it's cancelled. She said yes with breaking glass in her voice. In the car after, he laid out rules. You don't leave without permission. No phone calls I don't approve. No male contact. You belong to me now. Possession, not partnership. I hate you. Good. Hate is honest. He met her eyes. You're a prize on a shelf. Beautiful mine. Untouchable. I won't touch you unless you beg. I'll die first. His smile was cruel. We'll see. The mansion was a gilded cage with 12 bedrooms, and Naledi hated every inch of it. She started small, burnt toast, overcooked eggs, coffee with salt instead of sugar. Sa Yong-ho ate it all without comment, eyes on his tablet, dismissing her efforts with indifference. She escalated. His favourite silk tie ended up in the wash with her red dress, emerging pink and ruined. He wore it anyway to a meeting, let her see him walk out the door with it knotted perfectly at his throat, then never wore it again. Try harder, was all he said. At business dinners, she played the role of perfect wife with venomous precision, smiled too brightly, laughed too loudly, interrupted his conversations with innocent questions that made his associates uncomfortable. Once, she accidentally spilled wine across the table during negotiations with a rival family. Sa Yong-ho simply ordered more wine and closed the deal while she sat there with her heart pounding, waiting for retaliation that never came. He was stone, immovable, unaffected. So she changed tactics. The first time she walked through the living room in a silk robe that barely covered her thighs, Sa Yong-ho looked up from his laptop. His jaw tightened microscopically, then he returned to his screen. You'll catch cold. I'm warm enough. She sat across from him, letting the robe fall open enough to show the curve of her breast. His fingers stilled on the keyboard. For 3 perfect seconds she had his attention. Complete, focused, hungry. Then he closed the laptop and left the room. Victory tasted bitter, but it was still victory. She wore thin tank tops without bras, short dresses that rode up when she sat, perfume that lingered in hallways after she passed. Touched his arm during breakfast, fingers trailing slowly. Leaned over his shoulder to point at documents, breast brushing his back. Each time his control cracked a little more. She could see it in the white-knuckle grip on his coffee cup, the rigid line of his shoulders, the way he'd excuse himself and disappear for hours. One night she heard sounds from the private gym, the brutal rhythm of fists meeting leather. She crept down to watch through the cracked door. Sa-Yong-ho attacked the punching bag like it had personally wronged him. Each hit harder than the last, until blood smeared the leather and his knuckles split open. Jin-woo appeared beside her in the shadows. "You're playing with fire." "Good." "I want to watch him burn." "He won't burn. He'll explode, and you'll be standing too close." She ignored him and went back to bed, smiling. The bathroom incident was calculated. She waited until she heard him in his adjoining bedroom, then stepped out of the shower just as his door opened. The towel slipped from her fingers, perfectly timed, perfectly placed. Sa-Yong-ho froze in the doorway. His eyes tracked down her body with an intensity that made her skin burn, then snapped back up to her face. Something dark and dangerous flickered there. "Oops," she said softly. He turned and walked out, slamming the door so hard the frame cracked. She picked up the towel, wrapped it around herself, and laughed until tears came, not from joy, from the sick satisfaction of knowing she was getting to him. 3 weeks into her rebellion, she broke his cardinal rule. Jin-woo had left the car keys on the entry table, an oversight, or maybe a test. Either way, Naledi took them and drove to the upscale district downtown, to the club where foreign businessmen and local elite pretended the underworld didn't exist. She wore red, drank expensive cocktails, let a man with an American accent buy her another. "Your husband know you're here?" he asked, eyeing her wedding ring. "I don't have a husband. I have a warden." He laughed and put his hand on her waist, pulling her closer on the bar stool. His touch felt like freedom, even if it was a lie. The club went silent before she understood why. Sa-Yong-ho stood in the entrance, still in his work suit, and every person in that room instinctively backed away. The man beside her removed his hand like it had been burned. The bartender found something urgent to do at the far end of the bar. Her husband walked through the crowd with the confidence of a man who'd killed people in rooms just like this. He stopped in front of her, face carefully blank, eyes promising murder. "We're leaving." "No." Naledi lifted her chin. "I'm having a drink." His hand closed around her wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but immovable as iron. "Now," she jerked away. "I'm not your dog." The American made a strangled sound and fled. Sa-Yong-ho's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes went nuclear. In one smooth motion, he bent and threw her over his shoulder like she weighed nothing. Naledi screamed, beat his back, kicked her legs. He walked out of the club with her thrashing and cursing, and no one moved to stop him. Security opened the car door. He deposited her in the passenger seat with clinical precision, then rounded to the driver's side. Jin-woo appeared from nowhere to drive the other car. The ride home was silent as a tomb. Sa-Yong-ho's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, jaw so tight she could see the muscle jumping. He drove too fast, taking corners that made her stomach lurch, but his control never slipped. Naledi tried to feel triumphant. She'd gotten to him, made him react, proved he wasn't as cold as he pretended. But as she watched his profile in the dim light, beautiful and terrible and barely leashed, she wondered if Jin-woo had been right. Maybe she was standing too close. At the mansion, he got out without a word and walked inside. She followed, heart hammering, waiting for the explosion. He poured himself whiskey in his office, drank it in one swallow, then poured another. "You think you're clever," he said quietly. "I think I'm tired of being a prisoner. You're my wife. I'm your property. There's a difference." He turned to face her, and the look in his eyes made her step back. Not fear exactly, something worse. Hunger barely contained, violence barely leashed, want twisted into something dark and consuming. "Go to your room." "Or what?" or I'll forget the promises I made and take what I've wanted since I saw you in that red dress." He set down his glass with careful precision. "And you'll let me, because part of you wants to see how far I'll go. Part of you wants to push until I break." The truth of it hit her like a slap. She did want to see him break, wanted to crack that control and find something human underneath. But maybe there was nothing human left. She went to her room and locked the door, ignoring the fact that locks meant nothing to a man like him. That night, she heard him in the gym again, the relentless rhythm of destruction, the sound of a man at war with himself. And she fell asleep smiling, because at least she'd made him feel something, even if it was only rage. 2 nights after the club, Naledi decided to destroy him completely. She waited until the mansion settled into silence, until she heard Sa-Young-ho's door close down the hall. Then she locked her bedroom door, turned off the lights, and let her hand slide beneath the sheets. She started soft, a sigh barely audible, then louder. His name fell from her lips like a prayer and a curse, each moan deliberate. Calculated to carry through the walls she knew were thinner than they looked. Young-ho. In the hallway, Sa-Young-ho stopped mid-step. His hand tightened on the glass of water until it cracked. He set it down carefully on the hall table and approached her door like a man walking toward his own execution. Her voice rose, breathy and wanting. "Oh God, Young-ho." He pressed his forehead against the wood, breathing ragged, fists clenched so tight his nails cut crescents into his palms. Every sound she made was a knife twisting deeper, every moan unraveling the iron control he'd maintained for weeks. His hand reached for the doorknob, stopped, reached again. "Okay, pause for a second. If you're sitting there grinning because Naledi just weaponized her own desire to make this man lose his mind, you get it. She's trapped, powerless, but she's finding ways to take back control. And honestly, that's the energy we need. If you're Team Naledi and you're here watching her flip the script on this Mafia boss, hit that subscribe button right now. Only Team Naledi gets to subscribe. If you're rooting for her to break him piece by piece, you belong here. All right, let's get back to it because this man is about to lose it." Then he turned and walked away with mechanical precision, down the stairs, through the house to his private gym. The punching bag became the outlet for everything he couldn't do to her, couldn't take from her, couldn't have. He hit it until his vision blurred, until his knuckles split and blood painted the leather, until the bag tore free from its chain and crashed to the floor. Jin-woo found him at 2 a.m., sitting on the floor surrounded by wreckage, hands dripping red. "Sir, you're bleeding. Get out." "You need—" Sa-Young-ho's head snapped up, eyes wild with something between rage and desperation. "Get out." Jin-woo left. Smart man. 3 days later, Naledi bribed a driver with jewelry Sa-Young-ho had given her. Expensive chains she'd never wanted. The underground district was everything the upscale clubs weren't. Dangerous, dirty, real. No one here cared about her last name or who she'd married. She drank something that burned, danced with strangers who didn't ask questions, and felt almost free. Until a man twice her size grabbed her from behind, hands groping, breath reeking of alcohol. "Let go." "Come on, baby, don't be cold." She drove her elbow back into his ribs. He yanked her hair hard enough to make her eyes water, spinning her around. His fist rose and she braced for impact. The man's face suddenly exploded in blood. He dropped like a stone. Sa-Young-ho stood over him, chest heaving, expression beyond rage, pure lethal violence barely leashed. His eyes were black holes, empty of everything except the need to destroy. He grabbed Naledi's wrist and dragged her through the club. People scattered like roaches from light, pressing against walls, fleeing to exits. Someone tried to intervene, one of the bouncers, huge and scarred. Sa-Young-ho looked at him. just looked. The man backed away with his hands raised. Outside, he shoved her into his car with enough force to bruise. Jinwoo was already behind the wheel, face carefully blank. The drive home was silent except for Sa Young-ho's breathing, harsh, uneven, like a man on the edge of losing control completely. At the mansion, he dragged her inside and slammed the door so hard the hinges screamed. Then he rounded on her with death in his eyes. "I should kill you," Naledi laughed, wild, reckless. "Do it then, coward. End this. Pull the trigger or strangle me or whatever you monsters do. At least it would be over." She turned to walk away. His hand shot out and yanked her back, spinning her to face him. She didn't think, just reacted, slapping him hard enough to snap his head sideways. Blood welled from his split lip. For one heartbeat, they stared at each other. Then he moved. He slammed her against the wall and kissed her like he was trying to devour her whole, violent, desperate, all the control he'd hoarded for weeks shattering in an instant. She kissed back with equal fury, biting his already split lip, tasting his blood. Hating him and wanting him with an intensity that terrified her. His hands were everywhere, her hair, her waist, her thighs, claiming and consuming. She clawed at his shirt, buttons scattering, needing to hurt him as much as she needed this. For seconds or hours they were nothing but hunger and rage and want, twisted into something combustible. Then he shoved away so violently she nearly fell. They stood 3 feet apart, both breathing hard, lips swollen and bloodied. She spat in his face. "Coward." He wiped the saliva away slowly, eyes locked on hers, then turned and walked up the stairs without a word. Naledi slid down the wall to the floor, trembling so hard her teeth chattered, unsure if she'd won or lost, or if the distinction even mattered anymore. A week later, Jinwoo entered Sa Young-ho's office with a tablet and an expression that meant everything was about to change. "Sir, you need to see this." The footage was grainy, black and white, dated 2 years ago. An alley behind Cheonsa Corporation's building. 4 men with weapons surrounding a 5th, Sa Young-ho, younger, bloodied, going down hard. Then a woman ran into frame. Small, dark-skinned, wearing a coat too big for her. She screamed for help, grabbed Sa Young-ho under the arms, dragged him with desperate strength toward the streetlight. One attacker lunged. She threw herself between them and the knife caught her forearm, slicing deep. She screamed but didn't let go. Sirens in the distance. The attackers fled. The woman stayed, pressing her jacket to Sa Young-ho's wounds, calling for help until the ambulance arrived. Then she disappeared into the crowd before anyone could stop her. Jinwoo swiped to hospital records. Patient admitted with defensive knife wound. Name, Naledi Kumalo. Timestamp matched the alley footage exactly. Witness statements. A shopkeeper describing the woman who saved the businessman in the alley. Sa Young-ho stared at the screen until the images blurred. Something in his chest cracked, not quite breaking, but fracturing in ways that couldn't be repaired. It was her. "Yes, sir." All this time. He looked up, eyes raw. "Find her. Bring her to my office. Now." 20 minutes later, Naledi stood in front of his desk with her arms crossed, defiant even now. Sa Young-ho laid out each piece of evidence like a prosecutor presenting an ironclad case. "You saved my life. You knew. Why hide it?" She'd known this confrontation was coming eventually. "Because I saw your obsession. I thought if you knew, you'd never let me go. You thought I married you out of gratitude, didn't you?" Long silence. Then his mask cracked, and something human showed through, raw and painful, and true. "That night in the alley, bleeding, I thought I'd die forgotten, just another gangster in the dirt. But you stopped." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "A stranger with everything to lose, You chose to save me. It was the right thing. It reminded me I was human, not just the monster they made. He stood, came around the desk but didn't touch her. For 2 years I looked for that feeling. I didn't know I was looking for you. Naledi felt tears burn behind her eyes. So what now? You got your answer. Does it change anything? Everything, he said, and nothing. The shift happened slowly, like ice melting after a long winter. Young-ho stopped locking her bedroom door from the outside, stopped tracking her every movement through the house, stopped treating her like an object to be controlled. Dinner became dinner. Not a power play, not a battle, just 2 people eating at the same table. The first night he asked about her day, Naledi almost dropped her fork. What? Your day. How was it? He cut his steak with precise movements, not looking at her. Jinwoo mentioned you were reading in the library. Since when do you care what I do? Since I realized I never asked. He finally met her eyes. I'm asking now. She told him about the book, a thriller that was predictable but entertaining. He listened without interrupting, without dismissing her. When she finished, he recommended another one from his personal collection. It felt surreal, dangerous in a different way. 3 nights later, he told her about his father, how the old man had built the organization from nothing, ruled with an iron fist and no mercy. How Young-ho had been 10 when he first watched his father kill a man. He said emotions were weaknesses, love, fear, compassion, all chains that would get me killed. Young-ho poured himself more wine. He was right about most of it, but not all of it. I'm still figuring that out. Naledi saw glimpses then, cracks in the armor revealing something human underneath. The way he left her favorite tea on the counter each morning. How he'd close his laptop when she entered the room, giving her his full attention. Small things that shouldn't have mattered but somehow did. One afternoon she found him on the terrace staring at the city with an expression that looked almost lost. Do you ever regret it? She asked. This life? Every day? He didn't look at her. But regret doesn't change what you've become. It just reminds you of what you've killed to survive. That night in the alley, would you do it differently? If you could go back? I'd tell you to run. He finally turned to face her. I'd tell you saving me was the worst decision you ever made. Maybe it was. She moved closer. But it was mine to make. Something shifted in his expression. Gratitude, maybe, or the beginning of something more complicated. He reached out, fingertips barely brushing her cheek, then pulled back like he'd been burned. But the gesture lingered between them, changing everything. The nightmare hit him at 3 a.m. Naledi woke to sounds from his room, thrashing broken Korean words that sounded like pleas. She should have ignored it, gone back to sleep, maintained the careful distance they'd built. Instead, she went to him. His door was unlocked. He lay tangled in sheets, body rigid with terror, fighting invisible demons. Sweat soaked his hair, and in sleep stripped of control, he looked young and scared and heartbreakingly human. Young-ho, she touched his shoulder gently. Wake up. He came awake, swinging. She barely dodged his fist, catching his wrist instead. It's me. You're safe. You're home. Recognition flooded his eyes, along with shame so raw it hurt to witness. For 3 seconds, he almost reached for her, almost let himself be vulnerable. Then the walls slammed back up and he pulled away. You shouldn't be here. You were screaming. I'm fine. He sat up, running, shaking hands through his hair. Go back to bed. But she'd seen it. The crack in his foundation, the fear he carried, the boy who'd been forced to become a monster. And he'd seen that she'd seen it. Nothing would be the same after this. Da-young had been watching for weeks. His cousin's sudden softness, the way he looked at the woman, the distraction that had crept into Sa Yong-ho's legendary focus. Weakness. Finally, after years of waiting, weakness he could exploit. He struck during her shopping trip, newly permitted, loosely guarded. 3 men in a van, broad daylight, professional execution. They had her zip-tied and gagged before Jin-woo's security team could react. The call came through while Sa Yong-ho was in a meeting with the Korean syndicate heads. Jin-woo interrupted, unthinkable breach of protocol, and showed him the phone. A photo. Naledi bound to a chair, blood trickling from her temple, eyes defiant even in captivity. Every man in that room watched Sa Yong-ho's expression transform from calm negotiator to something primordial and lethal. Death itself wore his face. Meeting's over. Out. They left without question. The warehouse was abandoned, industrial, perfect for executions. Daijung had chosen it deliberately, where their grandfather had taught them both the family business. Poetic, he thought. He stood in the center with 12 men he'd carefully recruited, Naledi tied to a support beam behind him. Sa Yong-ho entered alone, hands visible, unarmed. Cousin, Daejung smiled. Finally ready to negotiate? Let her go. This is between us. Oh, but she's exactly what this is about. Daejung circled Naledi like a predator. You've gone soft, weak. Our grandfather would be ashamed. Our grandfather was a paranoid tyrant who died alone. I'm not interested in his approval. No, you're interested in her. Daejung grabbed Naledi's hair, forcing her head back. She didn't make a sound. Everything you built, or she dies. You have 10 seconds to decide. Sa Yong-ho's expression didn't change. You're forgetting something. What's that? I ordered the hit 2 years ago. Daejung's smile widened. The one in the alley. Should have finished you then. But you always were hard to kill. Sa Yong-ho smiled, cold, terrible. You just confessed in front of 12 men loyal to me. Daejung's smile faltered. He looked at his associates, saw them stepping back, saw weapons turning in his direction. No, you're bluffing. Every man in this room has been mine for months. You really thought I didn't know about your little coup? Sa Yong-ho's voice dropped to lethal softness. I've been waiting for you to make your move. The violence was brutal and efficient. Daejung's men restrained him as he screamed, begged, offered everything. Sa Yong-ho walked past them all to Naledi, producing a knife to cut her bonds. Close your eyes, he murmured. No. She held his gaze. Whatever you're going to do, I want to see it. He studied her face, then nodded slowly. Respect, maybe. Or something darker. He turned to Daejung and pulled his gun. You tried to kill me twice. Once in that alley. Once by taking her. He chambered around. Third time's the charm. The shot echoed through the warehouse. Daejung crumpled. Sa Yong-ho returned to Naledi, holstering his weapon, hands covered in his cousin's blood. He untied her completely, checked her head wound with surprising gentleness. Can you walk? Yes. He helped her up anyway, arm around her waist, supporting her weight. As they walked past Daejung's body, past the men who'd witnessed their boss execute family without hesitation, Naledi understood exactly what kind of monster she'd married, and couldn't find it in herself to look away. The mansion doctor treated Naledi's head wound in silence, stealing nervous glances at Sa Yong-ho, who stood by the window with blood still drying on his shirt cuffs. Dawn broke over the city in shades of gold and pink, beautiful and indifferent to the violence that had stained the night. When the doctor left, they sat across from each other at the dining table, the same table where they'd shared careful conversations and tentative truces. Now it felt like a courtroom. I can't keep doing this, Sa Yong-ho said finally. Naledi's head throbbed. Keep doing what? Pretending ownership is love, pretending I saved you when I've been the cage. He slid a manila folder across the polished wood. Open it. Inside were divorce papers, already signed on his line. Her hands trembled as she read the terms. Clean separation. No contest. Financial security that made her dizzy. Her mother's treatment funded permanently. A trust account in her name worth more than she could spend in 3 lifetimes. What is this? Freedom. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Your mother's treatment continues regardless. Trust account is yours no matter what. You can leave today. Now. I won't stop you. You're letting me go? I'm giving you what I should have from the start. A choice. His voice was hollow, scraped raw. No threats, no ultimatums. Just a choice that's actually yours. Naledi stared at him. This man who'd terrorized her, owned her, killed for her. Is that what you want? Long pause. His jaw worked like he was chewing glass. When he finally spoke, the words came out broken and true. No, but I've taken too many choices from you already. This one has to be yours. She looked down at the papers. Her freedom. Signed and sealed. Everything she'd wanted since the moment he'd forced her into that civil ceremony. She could walk out this door, go back to her family, live without fear or chains. Her hands picked up the papers. Sayongho's shoulders tensed, his whole body bracing for the blow. Naledi tore them in half. His head snapped up, eyes wide with something between hope and disbelief. I should walk away, she said quietly. You've terrorized me, blackmailed me, caged me like an animal. You should, he agreed. But that night 2 years ago, I saw someone worth saving. I chose to believe that person existed. She stood, pieces of the contract falling to the floor. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'm choosing wrong again. She walked around the table to stand in front of him. He remained seated, looking up at her with an expression so vulnerable it hurt. But I choose to stay. Not as your possession, not as your prize. She held out her hand. As your equal, your partner. Or nothing at all. He stood slowly like he was afraid sudden movement might shatter the moment. His hands came up to cup her face, shaking, reverent, stained with his cousin's blood, but impossibly gentle. Equal. Partner. Anything you want. His voice cracked. Everything you want. She kissed him. Not the violent collision of their first kiss, not the desperate hunger of their second, but something new. A promise, a beginning, a choice made freely on both sides. When they broke apart, the sun had fully risen, painting the room in new light. 6 months later, Naledi stood in the Cheonsa Corporation boardroom, presenting quarterly projections to men who'd once terrified her. She'd earned her position, Director of International Relations, through competence, not nepotism. They respected her now. Some even liked her. So Yongho sat at the head of the table, listening with the focused intensity he gave everything. But when she made a joke about their competitor's failed merger, she caught the ghost of a smile on his lips. After the meeting, Jin Woo approached with news. The Cheongpa family accepted our peace terms. No more territorial disputes. So Yongho nodded. Good. Schedule the signing for next week. Piece by piece, he was building something legitimate from the ashes of his father's violent empire. It would take years, maybe decades, but he was trying. They both were. Naledi's mother had received her transplant 3 months ago and was thriving. Her brother had graduated with honors. Her family had security, safety, peace, and she had this, whatever this was becoming. The charity gala that evening glittered with Seoul's elite, politicians, businessmen, socialites, who pretended not to know where half the money in the room came from. Naledi wore midnight blue silk that made Sa Yong-ho's eyes darken when he'd first seen her. They navigated the crowd together, his hand at the small of her back, protective, not possessive. A subtle but crucial difference. A journalist approached, young and eager. Mr. Sa, Mrs. Sa, how did you two meet? Your love story must be fascinating. They exchanged a look. Naledi saw the ghost of everything they'd survived in his eyes. The pepper spray, the forced marriage, the battles, and the breaking points. Then his lips quirked in that rare, genuine smile. I interviewed poorly, she said. I hired her anyway, he added. The journalist laughed, charmed. Best decision you ever made? Sayong-ho looked at Naledi, really looked at her, with an openness that would have been impossible 6 months ago. When he spoke, his voice carried nothing but truth, the only one that mattered. Later, on their terrace overlooking the city, Naledi stood at the railing with champagne warming in her hand. Sayong-ho joined her, close but not crowding, learning the dance of partnership after years of dominance. Do you regret it? She asked. Letting me choose? Every day. He took her hand, threading their fingers together. And not at all. She laughed, leaning into him. Below, the city sprawled in infinite lights, millions of people living their small, ordinary lives, unaware of the extraordinary violence and improbable love story unfolding above them. What happens now? She asked. Now? He pressed a kiss to her temple. We figure it out. Together. Together, she repeated, tasting the word, finding it fit. They stood there as night deepened, two people who'd found each other in blood and darkness, choosing each moment to stay. It wasn't the love story anyone would write, wasn't gentle or easy or pure, but it was theirs, and that was enough. Thank you for reading this Afro-Korean mafia romance. If you enjoyed Naledi and Sayong-ho's intense journey from forced possession to genuine partnership, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell for more dark romance stories. Drop a comment below. Would you have torn up those divorce papers? Or would you have walked away? Let me know what you think. Until then, remember, the best love stories aren't about perfection. They're about choice.